Daniel Carter adjusted the strap of his worn jacket as he guided his 8-year-old daughter, Emily, up the quiet road that led to Arlington National Cemetery. The crisp autumn air carried the scent of fallen leaves, and the rows of white headstones stretched endlessly across the rolling hills. Emily's small hand clutched his tightly, the other gripping a folded piece of paper, a drawing she had made of a soldier standing beside an angel. Today was the funeral of General Marcus Hayes, the man Daniel credited with saving his life, the man who had once been more of a father than anyone else. There had been no invitation in the mail, no phone call from the military. But Daniel remembered the words Hayes had written to him years ago in a rare, personal letter: "If the day ever comes, you'll know where to find me. I'd want you there." That was enough. He had put on his old uniform, threadbare at the cuffs, medals tarnished from time, and decided he would stand in the back if that was all they allowed. As they neared the gates, 2 ceremonial guards in crisp uniforms stepped forward, rifles crossed. "Sir, you're not on the list. This service is for family and official guests only," one said, voice stiff with protocol. Daniel's chest tightened. "I served under him for 3 tours. He saved my life. Please, just let us stand quietly." The guard's expression flickered, but duty held him firm. "Orders are orders, sir." Emily's blue eyes lifted to her father's, wide with confusion. "Daddy, why won't they let us in?" Daniel knelt beside her, forcing a steady smile even as shame and frustration burned inside. "Sometimes, sweetheart," he said softly, "people forget what really matters." The muffled sound of drums drifted from deep inside the cemetery as the funeral procession moved closer to the memorial site. Daniel stood at the gates, the weight of rejection pressing heavily against his chest. He had known the day would be difficult, but he hadn't expected to be barred from paying respects to the man who had once dragged him, bleeding and broken, across a battlefield to safety. Emily clutched the folded drawing against her chest, her small fingers trembling. "I wanted to give this to him," she whispered, her voice barely louder than the rustle of the flags overhead. Daniel's throat tightened. He crouched to meet her eyes, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "He would have loved it, Em. General Hayes always said you were his little soldier." He forced a smile, though his own heart felt like it was splintering. Straightening, Daniel turned back to the guards, desperation edging into his voice. "I'm not asking for honors or recognition. I don't need a seat up front. All I want is for my daughter to say goodbye to the man who saved her father's life. That's all." The guards shifted uncomfortably. For a fleeting moment, Daniel thought they might relent, but one finally shook his head. "Sir, we understand, but our orders are clear. Please step back." Daniel inhaled deeply, the rejection cutting deeper than he expected. He took Emily's hand and drew her close. "Come on, Em. We'll say our goodbye from here." He turned toward the rows of white stones and raised his hand in salute, his posture straight despite the dull ache in his injured leg. "Rest easy, General," he whispered, voice breaking. "Your soldier never forgot." A ripple of movement spread through the gathered crowd as a sleek black car rolled to a stop near the cemetery gates. The doors opened, and out stepped a tall figure in full dress uniform, his chest gleaming with medals, his shoulders square with command. 4 silver stars caught the sunlight on his collar, and whispers passed quickly among the mourners. "General Robert Ellison, the highest-ranking officer present." Ellison's sharp eyes swept across the solemn scene before settling on Daniel and Emily standing outside the gates. The young ceremonial guards stiffened, rifles still crossed, but uncertainty flickered in their expressions as the general approached. His polished shoes crunched on the gravel, and the air itself seemed to quiet in his presence. "What's going on here?" Ellison's voice was deep and authoritative, carrying the weight of a man accustomed to obedience. "Sir," one guard stammered, "he's not on the list." "We were ordered." "Ordered?" Ellison's tone cut like a blade. He turned to Daniel, studying him with an intensity that made Daniel instinctively stand straighter. Recognition sparked in the general's eyes. "Sergeant Daniel Carter. Hayes spoke of you often, said you were one of his finest soldiers." Daniel swallowed hard, his voice rough. "Sir, I didn't mean to disrupt anything. I just thought needed to be here. For him. For my daughter." He squeezed Emily's shoulder gently, grounding himself. Ellison straightened, his gaze sweeping the cemetery, the guards, and the mourners beyond. Then his voice rang out with absolute finality, "Then everything halts until this man walks in." The guard's eyes widened. Without hesitation, Ellison stepped forward and pulled the gates open himself. "Sergeant Carter, your place is not outside the fence," he declared. "Your place is with your general." The crowd hushed as Daniel and Emily walked through the gates, not alone, but escorted by General Ellison himself. The guards who had once blocked their path now stood at rigid attention, their eyes following with silent respect. For a moment, Daniel felt the familiar weight of eyes on him, the kind he had known in combat, yet this time, it wasn't judgment, but acknowledgement. The casket lay at the center of the memorial, draped in the American flag, a solemn reminder of the man who had shaped so many lives. Emily's small steps slowed as she approached, her hand still holding the folded drawing. When she reached the casket, she set it gently on top, her voice trembling but clear. "Goodbye, Grandpa Hayes. Thank you for saving my daddy." A lump rose in Daniel's throat as he snapped to attention. His injured leg screamed with pain, but he refused to bend. He raised his hand in a perfect salute, tears blurring his vision. For the first time in years, he felt not discarded or forgotten, but once again a soldier standing beside his general. The crack of rifles echoed across the cemetery as the honor guard fired 3 volleys. The haunting notes of taps followed, piercing the still air. Daniel's heart ached, but a deep peace settled within him. Ellison leaned closer, his voice quiet yet firm. "Hayes always said you were family, Carter. Today, the world sees it too." Daniel lowered his salute, glancing down at Emily, who clutched his hand with pride shining through her tears. In that moment, he understood that goodbyes were not about distance or lists, but about love and sacrifice. Sometimes, family wasn't written in blood or protocol. It was written in loyalty.